If it's fun you desire, it's fun you're going to get at Flat Stick Pub. It doesn't matter what the occasion is, whether it's date night, guys night, ladies night, or large group event, Flat Stick Pub's got you covered. They have 6 great locations across the Pacific Northwest, from Pioneer Square to Kirkland, South Lake Union, Spokane, Bellingham, and Redmond. All locations offer the best pub experience in Washington. 2 rules at Flat Stick Pub: drink local and have fun. Pretty simple. So if you like to have fun, love local beer, and great tasting food, make Flat Stick Pub your next spot. Visit them at flatstickpub.com. And here he is. It's John Canzano. He's with us, johncanzano.com. His weekly appearance brought to you by Flat Stick Pub. Cougar owned and operated, 6 great locations across the state of Washington: Kirkland, Pioneer Square, South Lake Union, Spokane, Bellingham, and Redmond. They got you covered for everything: date night, guys night, ladies night, large group events. Hello, John Canzano. How are you?
Happy New Year. Am I the first person to say that to you, or have you been getting that all day?
No, I did. I got it from some stranger yesterday.
Okay. All right.
He gave me a Happy New Year, because I think I went Merry Christmas and I forgot it was past Christmas. They said, it's Happy New Year. So yes, Happy New Year to you. I can't wait to get to your resolutions soon.
Oh yeah. Let's do it.
All right, before we jump into the games, I want to cover the games that are coming up. Of course, we'll get one game that is going to be tomorrow, and then we've got the full slate of games coming up there on the 31st. So we'll pause on that one. But first, I want to go to since the last time we talked, the huge story there with Kyle Whittingham. How shocked are you that Whittingham ended up at Michigan?
I mean, I guess in this era, nothing should surprise you, right? Except that Whittingham seemed to be the only guy that would be immune from, the modern era of college football. And, he had been at Utah for 3 decades, and that's where his dad was. And he had talked about, finishing his coaching career and then skiing in Park City and riding his Harley, which is a Utah-colored Harley Davidson, around Salt Lake City. There was a provision in his contract that gave him $3.4 million if he stuck around to be a fundraiser. All he would have to do is work 10 hours a week, Puck, 10 hours for $3.4 million a year. Also, his grandchildren and great-grandchildren were guaranteed free tuition at Utah. This was a legacy thing. And then all of a sudden, Michigan trips all over itself. Sharon Moore ends up in the pokey, and you end up firing him. And here comes Kyle Whittingham riding into, Ann Arbor on his Harley now, starting over. I mean, I think there's a lot of things to unpack here. I think one is that Utah screwed some of this up. They messed it up. No way administratively you let Kyle Whittingham leave you if he's still interested in coaching. They were obviously worried about getting Morgan Scalley that head coaching job. They were probably afraid to lose him and lose their contingency plan. And then secondarily, it just tells me Kyle Whittingham doesn't want to be a fundraiser at 10 hours a week. He wants to go coach football. And so I think Michigan failed forward. If you're a Michigan fan, you have to be ecstatic with this. You somehow came away with a better coach than the guy that you just fired, and you end up in a better situation. And for Whittingham, what a wonderful chance to see if a guy with culture who did it at Utah can now do it with resources in the Big Ten. This is going to be fun to watch.
It's remarkable. It really is. The problems that football program Michigan has been in for the last decade, for them, as you use that great term, fall forward, it's just remarkable. They couldn't have got a better coach, a guy that symbolizes everything, represents everything that's right about college football, the way that he conducts himself, the way that he coaches, the toughness, the mentality. It's such a perfect fit, him in Michigan. It makes too much sense for him to go to Michigan. The thing, and Jim and I discussed this yesterday, the thing with Utah that I don't understand from their perspective. I mean, there were signs he wanted to step down and was going to step down last year, right? But then the season doesn't go great. So he says, I'm not going to go out on that season. I'm going to come back one more year. Then they have a very good season, obviously. And so then Utah, Morgan Scalley's probably being contacted by other schools to be a head coach, whatever those schools are. And so he's chomping at the bit to get a job. He wants to be the head coach at Utah. But if Kyle Whittingham wants to stay, what I don't understand about Utah and their decision, why not just say, Morgan, I know you're the coach in waiting. We get it. But this guy wants to continue to coach. We're going to let him to continue to coach. If you want to leave and go elsewhere for a job, then go elsewhere for a job. Because here's what's going to happen. Whittingham stays on for, 2-3 more years to coach. Scalley goes coaches some other school, probably a lower school than Utah, right? He wins there, signals that he's a good coach. When Whittingham leaves, they're going to go hire Morgan Scalley.
Yeah.
He's going to get the job eventually. That's what I don't understand about it.
And also, there was something in Scalley's contract that guaranteed him that job. And I think Mark Harlan, the athletic director at Utah, he's a smart guy, but I think this one got botched because it's a different program when Kyle Whittingham's a coach. You think about the kind of CEO that he is. Well, the new era of coaches are going to have general managers. You're not going to have this unilateral autonomy that Kyle Whittingham has had all along at Utah. So it's a different program now at Utah. And here's the other thing. Who's going with Kyle Whittingham to Ann Arbor? He's going to take assistant coaches. He said he won't poach the roster, but if those kids jump in the portal, he's not going to ignore them. So, I think BYU's coaching staff, too, is going to get hit by this because he has such great connections there. Gary Anderson, the former Oregon State coach who flamed out in Corvallis, he's on Kalani Sitake's staff at BYU. Gary Anderson is one of the first people I thought about because I think Kyle Whittingham would hire him as his D-line coach or one of the defensive assistants. And so I think you're going to get a lot of domino effect here. That's going to be more than just Kyle Whittingham leaving Utah. I think Utah lost some culture here. I think they're going to lose some support staff. And I am also looking at the Big Ten. Utah dominated USC. They were 5-2 against USC in their last 7 meetings, beat them 3 in a row before USC left for the Big Ten. I have to think that Lincoln Riley's going, oh, crap. Michigan just got better, and they got better with the guy who was kicking my butt. Oregon was 3-3 against Utah in the last 6. They played Utah, had far fewer resources than Oregon did, played them toe-to-toe. So Whittingham now at Michigan has to change sort of the hierarchy there. A lot of people had believed that Michigan maybe was at the bottom of that top tier. If I'm Ohio State, Oregon, USC, Penn State, I'm going, crap, this is not good.
You think he coaches all 5 years there?
I think, look, he's 66 years old. We're looking at, a guy like Kirk Ferentz at Iowa who's 70. I think if the system is set up correctly, he's going to have resources, and in some ways the job's going to be easier for him in Ann Arbor. I think if he has success, he could do 4 or 5. I think he could get there. But, that's probably about it. He looks like he just wants to go, hey, you know what? I've never been able to, drive a Ferrari. Let me go drive a Ferrari for a couple years. And so I think it could just be that for him. But man, talk about this, Puck. 10 hours of work a week, $3.4 million, or go coach. He said, I'll go coach. I mean, it tells you he's a ball coach.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the college football playoffs. They will start tomorrow. Only just the one game tomorrow, the Cotton Bowl. Ohio State against Miami. The Buckeyes are heavy favorites in this game, 9.5. How do you see this one going? Do you think this goes the way that Vegas thinks it's going to be, and it's going to be a blowout? Or does Miami and Mario Cristobal have a shot against the Buckeyes?
You know what I would look at if I were a bettor, and I'm not, but I would look at the first quarter spreads of these quarterfinal games. Last year in the quarterfinal round, all 4 teams that had the bye started sluggish. Oregon got boat raced. Everybody was sluggish and playing from behind in that first quarter. What will the layoff do to Ohio State? What will the layoff do to Texas Tech, who hasn't played since December 6th? What will the layoff do to these teams versus maybe Miami that's in rhythm? It's almost a normal game week for Miami and Oregon and the teams that played in the opening round. I don't think Miami has the horses to compete here, but I like Ohio State winning it. But keep an eye on that first quarter because I wouldn't be surprised to see it maybe not go Ohio State's way early as the Buckeyes look like a team that's coming out of, playing a week 0 game and Miami's in normal game rhythm. I think Miami kind of hit their ceiling in beating Texas A&M. It was a great matchup for them. I like Ohio State in that one.
Okay, let's go. Then when we get to January 1st, we'll start it off there in the Orange Bowl, the Oregon Ducks taking on Texas Tech. Oregon favored by 2.5. And this is just I was just reading a long article, I think it was on ESPN.com, about the booster, the donor at Texas Tech, the Campbell guy, who was worth like, I don't know, $14 billion or something. He's the one who ended up buying this whole Texas Tech roster. It's new school versus old school, but Oregon has that kind of new school vibe to it, right? I mean, it's the same thing that Texas Tech did. Phil Knight gets involved, not in a time, in age of where it was NIL money, but he got involved and gave money, resources to the university and all that. And now Texas Tech is doing basically the same Oregon model, just differently now in the NIL world.
Yeah, and look, I saw Phil Knight when Oregon played Indiana in the middle of the season. He's 88 years old. You know, he's getting up there. And I think Oregon would love to give him a return on the $1 billion investment that he's made in his alma mater. $1 billion have gone into, you know, just the campus in general, facilities, football. He and his wife have given $1 billion plus. So I think Oregon would love to get him a return on the investment. So I do find that parallel interesting with the guy at Texas Tech who's new to this game. And you're watching Phil Knight on the other end. You know, when I saw him at the Indiana game, you know, he got an escort, he got a golf cart that took him up to the elevator. He got out with his friend, Ken O'Neill, his best friend. You know, he was using a cane. He's 88 years old. And I think Oregon would love to give him, you know, a thrill this season. And, you know, he's watching this unfold. So, you know, it is a little bit new and old, but Oregon, nobody was better positioned for this era than the Oregon Ducks. NIL, portal. Oregon's had its toes on the line for years with, you know, the rules and what you could get away with. Now the Ducks, I think, are just so uniquely it was like they had rocket fuel behind them. When everybody else was going, oh, we have to adjust to this. Oregon was like, we know how to do this. You know, they had already essentially privatized that athletic department. You know, they were not operating like a public school. They were funded by Phil Knight, and they had a donor, Pat Kilkenny, who was the AD for a spell. He worked as the AD for $1 a year because they just wanted to get a building built. They built Matthew Knight Arena, and then he got out. So Oregon, in this era, Oregon's just so uniquely positioned. This matchup's interesting, though, in this quarterfinal round. Oregon's in rhythm. They talked about it all week. They're on a normal game week. Texas Tech hasn't played since December 6th. I don't love Texas Tech's offense. I think Oregon's defense can hold them in the low 20s. And I think this is a game Oregon can win. And I think given the layoff, I kind of expect the Ducks to have a great first quarter, great start. Will they have the swoon in the fourth quarter that they had against James Madison? We'll see. But I like Oregon. I don't love the kickoff time and the body clock for Oregon. Real early West Coast time kickoff, but I'll take the Ducks in like a 23-21, 24-21 game.
Okay, if they do advance, they will face the winner in the Rose Bowl. It's number 1 Indiana, number 9 Alabama. It will not, John, kick off at its traditional 2 p.m. start time. That means we get robbed of the sunset like late in the third quarter, which is just, but it's just, you know what? It's poetic for everything that's wrong with college football right now, that we don't care about anything anymore and traditions and all that. It will kick off at 1 o'clock, Indiana and Alabama. Does Indiana advance to the semifinals to face Oregon in a rematch, you think?
Yes, Indiana finds a way. I think Curt Cignetti's too good of a coach to lose this game. Alabama's got flaws. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if Alabama led this game in the first quarter, just because of Alabama being like, you know, they played in the SEC championship game. They played in the opening round. Now they're playing in this game. Alabama, you know, this is not new, and Indiana has been off since the Big Ten title game, and they won that game, you know, in a really hard-fought game against Ohio State. So, look, I love Indiana in this game. I think Oregon-Indiana is the rematch on that side of the bracket, and I think that would be a fantastic semifinal. But Alabama kind of hit its ceiling for me in the last round. I think Indiana in the second half takes over this game.
You think, I don't know if we discussed this last week. Do you think if had Alabama lost bad, right, and they get shut out? Remember, Oklahoma's up on them big, and it looks like they're going to blow them out. Had they blown them out, do you think they move on from DeBoer?
Ooh, that I wonder if DeBoer is the coach at Michigan. You know, like does he get out? You know, Greg Byrne, the athletic director at Alabama. You know, he's a West Coast guy. His dad, Bill, worked at Oregon as the athletic director. Greg was at Arizona prior to going to Alabama. I talked to him prior to him hiring Kalen DeBoer. He was locked into Kalen DeBoer for a while. He was watching what he did at Washington. So I have a hard time thinking that Byrne would come in and go, hey, I made a mistake just because you lost in the playoff. It's kind of like, look back to last season. Ohio State could have done that with Ryan Day, right? Bad loss, you know, to your rival late in the season, 2-loss season. You barely back into the playoff. They could have given up on Ryan Day if it was a 14 playoff. I wonder if Ohio State would have fired him. I think there's a lot of ADs looking around going, all right, that's a lot of money to pay these guys if you're going to move on from them. You know, you need that money to revenue share. But I just think ultimately Greg Byrne would have had a hard time acknowledging, oh, I made a mistake with Kalen DeBoer. And I do think DeBoer is a really good coach. I think Washington fans would back me on that.
Yeah.
But I think they're in over their heads in this game. They don't have the talent. They don't have the complete team. They don't have the quarterback. I think Indiana wins, but again, I would look at that first quarter, first half spread. I wouldn't be surprised to see Alabama leading this game like 10-3 at the end of the first quarter.
Got Indiana winning this whole thing would just be a remarkable story from a team that had the most losses in Division I football history. It really have been an afterthought when it comes to college football. It's always been a basketball school, and then they went and just they said, "F it, we're gonna buy a team." Not to the degree that Texas Tech did, because a lot of these kids came over from James Madison there with Signetti, and he had a culture and he built it. It's not like it's a bunch of 5-star guys and transfer portal dudes. A lot of guys from his last stop. But
think about this, Buck, too. There's a parallel here with Signetti and Kyle Whittingham. I mean, Signetti comes to Indiana. He's in his 60s. I mean, he's like the third oldest coach in college football. I think he's 61. So you look at Signetti, you look at Whittingham. Signetti, moves over, and he's done it with resources. I mean, culture is culture, right? Mm-hmm. You've got a culture keeping philosophy in your program. I don't think it goes away when you change your zip code. Yeah.
All right. Before I get to Ole Miss and Georgia, which will be nuts in the Sugar Bowl and New Orleans and all that, let me circle back to Oregon. Yeah. The fact, how many assistants are departing Dan Lanning's staff, and how much of, I know about Lapoy and Stein, they're gone, taking head coaching jobs. I think there's other assistants that are going to leave and go with them. How much is that a distraction moving forward? How can you do two jobs at once?
Yeah, I mentioned this on my podcast last night. I posted a podcast just kind of talking about this. Will Stein did his weekly media appearance earlier this week. And the thing I noticed, it wasn't something he said. It was the circles around his eyes. He looked tired. He looked tired to me. And I'd not seen him like that. And, you think about it. He's flying back and forth. He's going to Lexington, Kentucky. He's in Eugene. He's, the portal's opening here the day after the game that they play. It opens January 2nd. You've got, he and Tosh Lapoy have to absolutely be expending some of their bandwidth. They can say all they want that they're focused on this game and this opponent, but some of your bandwidth has to be on what you're doing next. And I do wonder about that. Then there are other assistants. I think there's at least 2 other assistants that have now said, hey, they're going with Tosh Lapoy's taking one to Cal. And I think that does have an impact and it does have an effect. But it is kind of the casualty of the calendar here in college football. This is a lousy calendar. We should move the season up to week 0. The conference championship game should happen after Thanksgiving. The first round of the playoffs should happen a week later. Puck, the national championship game should be happening this next week. And then the portal opens. That would really help everybody, because I think it is a terrible distraction right now. And this is a factor for Oregon. You can, they can say all they want that this isn't, it won't matter. They're focused on their duties. We've seen this before. We've been to the puppet show. We've seen the strings. We know what is going to happen here. There's going to be some fallout from these guys moving on to other jobs.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to the other game, or the last game. Ole Miss and Georgia just will be a fantastic theater there in the Sugar Bowl. Two Southeastern Conference squads. Obviously, the Lane Kiffin angle. I feel like anybody's been talking about Georgia for some reason. That kind of feels like they've been kind of an afterthought in this whole thing. Can Ole Miss keep it running despite their head coach now coaching at LSU?
Ole Miss impressed me, because I thought without their coach, I wondered if those guys would have an eye on the portal. I wondered if they wouldn't be in it. They looked like a team in that opening round game, and they got that same tune-up game that Oregon got, right? They got an opponent that they should beat. They got a chance to get back in rhythm. And I think that's Ole Miss's only shot in this game, is to jump out like 14-0 in the first quarter and then try to make this a close game late. Georgia's just better in every way, but Georgia is sitting in that position like Oregon was a year ago, where they've had time off. And this is the game that I'm wondering if it matters, because I think Georgia is better, but I'm not sold on Georgia's quarterback play, and these teams know each other. I think this is going to be a really fun game, and again, I will not be surprised if Ole Miss leads this game at the end of the first quarter or at halftime. They're not the better team, but they're in rhythm, and Georgia's not.
I'm not sure if you've seen this story. It just came out, I don't know, like 10 minutes ago. It was a post. And it's just, it highlights, John, just another example of how stupid college football is right now. There is a tackle at Oklahoma State, and his name is Grant Segrin. He is announced weeks ago that he's entered the transfer portal. Okay. But today, when they hire the guys that do the big thing on Twitter, with their image and all the messaging, he announced that he's in the portal, but he announced his scheduled visits for the 4 schools that he's going to go visit. So, and with the dates and everything. And the 4 schools are the following. Now, remember, he's in the portal, Oklahoma State tackle. He's going to go visit Auburn, Northwestern, Arkansas, and the final school he's going to go visit is Oklahoma State. I mean, that just tells you everything about how dumb the sport is right now. He just spent like 2-3 years there. He needs to take another official visit back to the school he just was at. But
isn't that interesting? Okay, so here's what's going on. Here's what's going on there. All right, so a number of players who get in the portal find that there's a rude awakening once they get into the portal, that maybe the market for their services isn't what they thought. So what's happening here with this kid is that I have no other reason than to believe that he's making sure that Oklahoma State gets last right of refusal. And basically he's saying, look, I want to have a place to come back to if maybe the offers I think that are out there don't materialize. If I'm Oklahoma State, you might think about saying no. Once you get in the portal, you're in the portal, but they're not in that position. It's not the world that we work in. The players have all the leverage. This is unrestricted free agency with no, year-to-year contracts every year. But, there are a number of players who are going to get into the portal right now who don't know that their careers are over, Puck, because they're going to get in the portal and there's not enough places for them to go. You got kids coming out of high school. You got kids coming out of community college that are going to eat up some of these spots. Some of the players that get in the portal are not going to have a landing spot. This guy will because of his talent. And, Northwestern's got a new offensive coordinator in Chip Kelly. Looks like Chip Kelly's going there. So he's going to go meet Chip Kelly and see all these new things. But he wants to know that he has a place to come back to if that doesn't work out. And I've talked to some coaches who say, no, you get in the portal, you lost your scholarship. You can't come back. I find this an interesting move by the players, but they've got all the leverage.
Oh, my favorite thing is and every school is doing this now, including my school, the re-signing. Yeah, I do enjoy and I'll be honest with you, I kind of actually like it just because so what's going on. Yeah, and I mean it's weird, and I never thought we would see this in college sports. Yeah, but I do like. All right, at least we know he's coming back. Like the Cougars just announced Maxwell Woods, the running back who starred in their bowl game, is coming back. This is a great get for Kirby Moore to have an established running back coming back. All right, college basketball is just a mess right now. Every coach is sounding off. We've heard from Calipari. We've heard from Izzo. We've heard from Mark Few on this. And for people that are not following the story, they are essentially letting players who have played professionally, whether in Europe, the G League, a guy has just been drafted in an NBA team a couple of years ago, allowing these players now to come back and play in college. And the NCAA is allowing this to happen. Now, many are speculating they're allowing this because they're just kind of putting their hands up, waiting for Congress to get involved. Do you buy into that that's kind of the end game here by the NCAA?
Well, the NCAA has been sued into oblivion. They're winless. They are not good in the courtroom. And so I think what they're saying is we don't want to fight any of this. And we can't. We're not equipped to do this. And it just tells you 20 years ago, 15 years ago, they should have moved to revenue sharing. They should have been sharing with the athletes. They could have set up a system. And by the way, the NCAA really is the member institutions. Everyone likes to think of it as this nameless, faceless building in Indianapolis. And I've run by that building and it looks like a Supreme Court courthouse. But it really is Washington State and Oregon and Washington and Oregon State, and all the member institutions. That's who the NCAA is. They've blown this. And the basketball arena is the place where I think it is going to be the most absurd because basketball has always pushed it, right? One and dones. We've seen players go into academies. We've seen coaches that will do anything to get talent. Damian Lillard tweeted out, I think a few weeks ago, he says, hey, I got a year of eligibility left. Does this mean I can come back and play at Weber State? Like, why not? Like, who would stop him from doing it? Nobody
I
will.
wondered that too with Klay Thompson. Like,
Yeah.
Klay has another year of eligibility.
Come on
Can
back.
he come back? I mean, this would, seems to me, open the door. I bet you some deep down there might be one little small regret for LeBron James that he never played college basketball. What
I'm
stops
opening my
him
recruitment.
What stops him from I'm out from the NBA and the decision comes, I'm going to Duke. And he's a 42-year-old freshman at Duke.
He could do it. Under their rules, he would be eligible,
right?
Because he has not exhausted his eligibility. So, I mean, he could go. Like, does he have any more kids in college? Has he still got eligibility? Like, he could go out and play with one of his grandkids. Who knows? Like, I think. And I love that the coaches are talking about it. You see the football coaches are a little more reserved. Mm-hmm. They act like they have more to lose. The basketball coaches, they don't give a hoot. Like, Calipari is going to talk about this. I wish Jerry Tarkanian were around. He would be spouting off how about this. The absurdity out there in basketball is real, and I do think at some point there's going to be laws. There's going to be legislation. Lawmakers will get involved. But do you really want that? Like, college athletics should be grown up enough to police itself. It just isn't right now.
All right, last thing for you. Last conversation before 25. What are you looking? What is John Canzano there at johncanzano.com? And, of course, on YouTube, John Canzano as well. What are you looking forward to? What are you looking ahead to in 2026?
I just had it like you have. Look, you went rogue on this pirate ship that is Puck Sports. I've done it with my writing. I'm doing it now in my radio spoken word, format. I was on an airplane yesterday and I had 2 or 3 guys that were sitting around me saying, hey, I subscribe to you. I can't wait to see what you're going to do with this audio thing. It's just exciting to me to like, as much as we all get turned off by what's going on with college athletics and, this all become a business. I think you and I have connected, more clearly and closely with the people who read me and the people who watch you and listen to you. I think that we're in a one-to-one relationship with these people. So that feels really good to me. I'm looking forward to more of that this next year.
All right. Well, Happy New Year to you and your family. And we'll look forward to the continued chats in 2026. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Puck.